Hey YouTube, welcome back. Now just quickly before we get into things, I'd just like to let you know myself and Crossing channel have teamed up to start a brand new project over on a brand new channel dedicated to news for all of your favourite Nintendo games. We'll be covering all kinds of Nintendo headlines, guides, reviews and tips and tricks, so be sure to check it out. Plus, we're currently hosting a giveaway for an OLED Switch, so if you want to be in with a chance to win your very own OLED Switch, be sure to subscribe to Ninty News. Today we are being extremely optimistic and going down a crossover rabbit hole and breaking down 3 updates we will probably see at some point in 2022 that introduce some form of crossover. Back in November 2021, Nintendo dropped the mind-blowing 2.0 update that introduced many old and new features, as well as some old and new characters. The update was of course released alongside the Happy Home Paradise expansion, which is a paid DLC add-on. Now at the time, Nintendo openly announced during the 2.0 update, which saw all of the free content such as Brewster and the Roost, Cap'n and his boat tours, and of course the cooking mechanic, that this update was the last major free update. Now this implies a few things: that we'll continue to see major updates as we have since the launch of 2.0, but also that they're moving to paid expansions. Personally, I think this was nothing more than a little decision the marketing team chose to add to justify promoting the DLC in the same direct as free content. Anyway, a Nintendo spokesperson has since reiterated to a couple of news outlets that Happy Home Paradise is the first and last paid DLC for New Horizons, which means no more expansion passes. So we have the last major free update and the one and only paid update, which really only leaves room for future minor updates. As anyone from the software or game developing world will know, this typically implies new content and bug fixes that doesn't change the core fundamentals of a game or change how current game mechanics work. Anyway, that's out of the scope of this video, but what it does leave us with is what, if any, future updates would entail that wouldn't warrant a major update. And I think the answer is simple: crossovers. Now before I explain why, let's take a look at 3 crossovers we will probably see this year. Number 1. Zelda. Now for one reason or another, this year is set to be a huge year for Zelda, primarily because we'll finally see more of Breath of the Wild 2, but there's also rumours of Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages remakes making it to Switch, and this will all correspond with further 35th anniversary celebrations allegedly. Anyway, most likely during the release of these games, we'll see some of these Zelda villages or Zelda items return to New Horizons in a crossover update or event to help promote the franchise to Animal Crossing fans. This is something Nintendo does regularly across all their IPs, and since Zelda villages and Zelda items already exist in the Animal Crossing world, it makes sense. Some of these Zelda villages include W.Link, Ganon, Medley and Epona, all inspired by Zelda characters, each of which debuted in New Leaf Welcome Amiibo along with a bunch of Zelda items. Some Zelda items such as the Master Sword can even be seen as far back as the original Animal Crossing, so it's hard to believe we won't see these added to New Horizons at some point. Number 2. Splatoon. Now like Zelda, it's going to be a massive year for Splatoon and its already loyal fanbase, as Splatoon 3 is expected to release sometime in 2022. Although Splatoon 2 is still receiving small updates even now, they are primarily bug fixes, so the hype for a new game and new content is already building. Once Splatoon 3 drops, it's entirely possible we'll see the Splatoon inspired villagers and again the Splatoon items returning to the franchise in a crossover update. These were introduced in the Welcome Amiibo update to New Leaf along with some of the coolest Nintendo themed items in the game. The villagers include Inkwell, who you'll recognise if you're watching my New Leaf Let's Play on my second channel, as well as Cece and Vigi, the Callie and Marie inspired squirrels. Anyway, considering Animal Crossing and Splatoon share a large target audience, it's almost a given that Nintendo would take the opportunity to cross-promote these games once Splatoon 3 releases. Number 3. Monster Hunter. Moving on, Monster Hunter as a series seems to become more and more successful and well known as time goes on, and like the previous crossovers we've mentioned, Monster Hunter as a franchise has an exciting year ahead because an expansion pass for the latest Monster Hunter Rise game is rumoured to release in summer of 2022, and although not a Nintendo IP, like Zelda and Splatoon, Monster Hunter has seen an Animal Crossing crossover in the past with Feline the Lazy Cat SPLAT, who has actually appeared in 2 Animal Crossing games already. As you'd expect, when Feline was introduced to Animal Crossing, he brought with him a bunch of cool Monster Hunter themed items, so it seems to me Nintendo may use this as an opportunity to help promote future expansions if already adding previous villagers. Now, you may think bringing old villagers back such as W.Link or Inkwell and their corresponding furniture sets is unlikely, but Nintendo has of course already done this with the Sanrio villagers in the 1.9 update almost a year ago now, and as you know, 1.9 is not considered a major update to a game's version in terms of version numbers, so considering the year Nintendo and their partners have ahead of them, and the fact adding villagers, items and crossover events already set the precedent for being minor updates, I think it's highly likely we'll see some, if not all of these return throughout the year. But what do you think about the Animal Crossing crossovers? Out of these 3 franchises, who would you like to see return the most? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Of course, thank you so much to all the patrons and channel members for supporting this content, and until next time, have an amazing day, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.